Cyberpunk Jordan.
Attention guests in the luggage claim area, welcome to the Jordania Volcano Hotel. A couple of quick reminders before you approach the elevator towards the lobby. Jordan's Soapbox is a show broadcasted on-site and supported via Patreon. If you would like to support what I do and not cause the country of Jordania economic ruin, consider supporting it for behind-the-scenes access and other rewards. It's recommended frequent visitors subscribe to the channel and ring the bell for updates whenever new videos are made. Do you want to hang out with your fellow guests? Consider jacking into the Cyberpunk Jordan Discord, where you can hang out with me and talk about Sonic and Sega stuff, among other things. And now, our elevator shaft will be departing for the lobby area. Thank you for your attention and enjoy your stay.
Hello my gummy bears, my name is Jordan, also known as CJ, and welcome back to Jordan's Soapbox, the show that talks about anything that I want to talk about. So Sonic the Hedgehog has had a lot of different crossovers in its lifetime. Heck, we even covered one on this very show with the Sonic Image crossover, which we all know sucked lemons. But today's crossover is one that decidedly doesn't suck lemons. In fact, it's likely one of the best crossovers Sonic has ever had. Worlds Collide. A crossover between the two ongoing comics at the time from Archie Comics, Sonic the Hedgehog and Mega Man. Wait a minute. I haven't talked about Mega Man on this show before. Hit the brakes, I got some explaining to do. Mega Man is a series of platforming video games debuting in the 1980s on the Nintendo Entertainment System by Capcom. It's seen several releases and many spin-offs, such as Mega Man Zero, which was my introduction to the Blue Bomber. I really like Zero. He's a cool dude. Anyway, with such a long-running series and a de facto mascot for Capcom, one might be surprised to learn that comic-wise, there was very little, if anything, outside of Magna in Japan, and one in Brazil we won't be talking about because, you really don't want to know. I mean, I'm just warning you guys, you really don't want to know. It wasn't until 2010 when Archie Comics took up the mantle with the aptly named Mega Man, and the series that followed is one of the coolest licensed comic books to ever come out of the 2010s, and I'd love to cover it one day on this channel if my focus wasn't on certain blue hedgehogs. Anyway, with Archie Comics now owning the license to two major video game franchises, it wasn't a question of if they would cross over, but when. On July 10th, 2012, it was announced that worlds would indeed be colliding the following year with the not-so-subtle title of Worlds Collide, which would run for 12 issues between Sonic the Hedgehog, Sonic Universe, and Mega Man. And I'm gonna praise something right away, and that's the crossover itself. Some crossovers are really difficult to do, because the properties that cross over often don't mesh well together and require a lot of effort on the writers to make something that makes sense. As mentioned before, we saw this go horribly wrong in the Sonic Image crossover, where an all-ages comic book was combined with a mostly mature comic book line. To be fair, I think it could have worked, but it just wasn't a good match. Worlds Collide doesn't suffer from the same problem because these are two legendary video game franchises that stood side by side in the 1990s, recognizable even outside of the typical comic book video game sphere. If you think video games, you probably think of Super Mario Bros., Sonic, and Mega Man. But wait a minute, you might say. Archie Sonic has a lot of original elements outside the video games. Wouldn't that be a problem? No. Smartly, Worlds Collide, mostly outside of a few references to it, completely ignores those original elements from both series, instead crafting its own tale that more or less sticks to things strictly to characters and settings from the Sonic and Mega Man video games. I know it's tempting to include the Freedom Fighters because they've been such a core part of the Archie Sonic book, but this would have likely led to enormous confusion for folks who this might be their first time reading anything from Archie Sonic or Mega Man. For a crossover like this to work, you have to be simple, so the characters, settings, and events are easy to follow for an average reader, and mesh well as they can. Speaking of which, the events of Worlds Collide begin with Dr. Wily discovering a Chaos Emerald, teleported there from the events of the Genesis arc that I'm sure we're going to be discussing much to my displeasure. He then comes in contact with Dr. Eggman, and the two twisted geniuses bond over the fact that both their enemies are blue. Among other things. With their efforts combined, they build the Skull Egg Zone and Wily Egg, and set about collecting the remaining Chaos Emeralds through the use of the roboticized masters, using Dr. Eggman's robotization process but designed as a Wily-designed robot master. Lastly, due to some reality rewriting and trickery from the Mad Doctors, Sonic and Mega Man start to beat the snot out of each other, as is protocol when two universes like this collide. Look, even Off-Panel made that joke. And that's more or less where we start with Worlds Collide, and we're off to a great start. The first two issues introduce us to the main conflict, showing the events that transpired from both the villains and heroes' side, which helps the reader become acclimated to both universes. It also helps that there is a simple premise. Dr. Eggman, Dr. Wily wants to rewrite reality, and it's up to our heroes to stop it. Simple? Absolutely, but told masterfully. It's more of an excuse to have some really cool moments, such as the aforementioned Sonic and Mega Man beating the snot out of each other. Look, this was before Mega Man was announced to be for Super Smash Bros. For Wii U and 3DS, so seeing the two come to blows was actually kinda cool, considering they hadn't been in media together. No, that doesn't count. But it doesn't last long as our two heroes figure out they've been duped, with Sonic and Mega Man using their abilities in tandem to reverse the roboticized masters. I love the interactions between characters, chief among which is Sonic and Mega Man themselves. Sonic is his usual wisecracking and arrogant self, but his heroism is not deniable. Mega Man is a by-the-books robot, but he's also a kid at the end of the day. I love how the two bounce off each other. It makes it so much fun, and that's kind of necessary considering how these two are our lead characters. It would kind of suck if they, were terribly written or something. I'm not foreshadowing. When returning to Light Labs, the titular Dr. Light, Mega Man's father of sorts, is kidnapped by Metal Sonic and Bass. Our heroes, now with the addition of Proto Man, follow them into the Skull Egg Zone, a twisted zone that features elements from both Sonic and Mega Man, which is a lot of fun seeing their respective reactions to the other's common elements from those series. We also have some fun fights before the roboticized masters between Copybot and a Genesis unit of robot masters, who should be destroyed, but thanks to that aforementioned adherence to canon is minimal at best, from earlier, we're reaping the rewards. With stuff that doesn't really make sense with the canon for either series, but hey, you know what? It's fun to see, so let's include it anyway. Throughout the arc, Sonic and Mega Man have to face off against 8, technically 9, roboticized masters, which I utterly love their design because they're Sonic characters with a Capcom-infused design. It's pretty much how the next couple of issues follow, Sonic and Mega Man slowly but surely defeating the roboticized masters with some fun fights along the way that keep the combatants low so we can follow the action. Mega Man retains his in-game ability to copy their abilities, which is fun to see both in terms of the abilities copied and the different color schemes that Mega Man has throughout. I really like that one. Can I steal that for a fashion? With our heroes now back to normal assembled, an assault on the Wily Egg is conducted with an enormous army of robot masters and one more roboticized master in the form of Rouge the Bat, who was sneaking aboard the ship to aid Dr. Light. It is overwhelming and chaotic with how many characters are on the page, but it makes sense. It's supposed to be. It's an enormous war zone, almost like a child smashing every single Sonic and Mega Man action figure they have. Since it was saved for the very end of the crossover, it's more than earned and doesn't overstay its welcome. However, what has overstayed their welcome is the captured Dr. Light, who Eggman has deduced is the one learning and sabotaging their plans, and decides to throw them out of the Wily Egg to their death. This leads into arguably the best interaction of Worlds Collide and one that I've been saving for last, the relationship between Dr. Eggman and Dr. Wily. Sure, both are similar in that they're mad scientists heck bent on taking over the world, but as the arc continues, it's clear the two men could not be more different from each other. Dr. Wily is more of a tragic villain, one born out of circumstances rather than a total willingness to be evil. Dr. Eggman, on the other hand, is the total opposite. A ruthless megalomaniac that will not hesitate to kill to achieve his goals. Mind you, this is the version of the character that exploded Metal Sonic on Antoine and sent them into a coma. It all comes to a head here, with the friendship between the two dissolving afterward for the rest of the arc. The moment of Dr. Light falling to their doom is further punctuated with the reaction from Mega Man, screaming, crying, but nonetheless helpless as his father falls towards a certain doom. Thankfully saved via last intervention by edgy good boy Shadow, but still, the moment hits hard nonetheless. After that, Sonic, Tails, Mega Man, and Rush board the Wily Egg for a final confrontation. With Tails being knocked out of the fight, honestly, it was a better way to get knocked out of a fight than what happened in Forces, and an intervention from Duo. Oh yeah, they're a thing in this arc, but you know what? I don't care about them, so let's move on. Allows the heroes to reach one of the last sub-bosses, if you will, Bass and Metal Sonic. It's a really fun fight between these two dark, robotic counterparts of our heroes, and it all leads to the final confrontation between Dr. Eggman and Dr. Wily, who are both scheming against each other because of aforementioned events, while also trying to rewrite existence itself. Yeah, this is gonna go over well. Sonic and Mega Man are captured at first and later freed, and even later transforming into Super Sonic and Super Mega Man? Yeah, I guess that's what we're gonna call them, Super Mega Man. Yeah, it's a really cool moment that totally screams, this is a crossover with its own rules. Deal with it. That is completely spoiled by the issue's cover. It would have made a lot more of a cooler moment if we didn't know that was gonna be a thing, but oh well, it doesn't take away from how awesome this is. An all-out battle occurs which ramps up the chaos factor to 11. It feels like a final boss from the Sonic series, honestly, like the Nega Wisp from Sonic Colors. It feels very much like that. The two villains are defeated, but while Dr. Wily knows when to accept defeat, did you remember what I said about Dr. Eggman? As the two heroes use chaos control to restore their worlds, Dr. Eggman screws up the shot from Sonic, causing, well, that's a story for another time. And that was Worlds Collide. I gotta be honest, I know it gets a bad reputation for being the thing that leads the post-Super Genesis wave, and we'll talk about that at another time, but you know what? It's still a really good crossover. It combines elements of both Sonic and Mega Man seamlessly, as if they were always meant to be together. It can be enjoyed by those even with cursory knowledge of either franchise. It has stellar dialogue, excellent art direction, ideas that are executed effortlessly. I mean, I can't really say anything negative about this, outside of just that spoiler with the cover, you know, which even then is kind of a small complaint. It's otherwise a perfect crossover that I think deserves a lot more attention, and you should definitely read it if you get the chance to do so. Trust me when I say, it's a really fun time. Anyway, that's all for this episode of Jordan's Soapbox. If you must excuse me, I need to figure out why Capcom hasn't made Mega Man 12 yet. Seriously, Capcom, it's been years. Kinda hurry up.
Thank you for visiting the Jordania Volcano Hotel. We hope that you'll visit again soon. Before you leave, would you like something from our gift shop? Becca has the latest and totally not looted goods from all over the world. One item of note is the subscribe button, coming from the US state of California. It works best when you ring its bell and turn on notifications, so you don't miss an episode of Jordan's Soapbox. We also have a limited edition video that we also think you might like, and a collection of Jordan's Soapbox episodes in a playlist, all for the price of... wait a minute. Free? We're giving these out for free? Becca, we are...